Lauren Laria Duluvirt and her maid Rita Farron are both captured by bandits, and Lauren was about to be manhandled by one of them. That is, until the arrival of a large armored knight named Ark, who promptly slays them with a single swipe of his sword. Before all of this, Ark awakens in front of a tree and is left perturbed by his situation. After calming himself down, he assesses himself and his equipment and realizes that he's inside of the body of his game character Ark, recalling that he fell asleep after playing the game. Ark tries out his wyvern slash move and is left stupefied by the power behind it. Trying out magic next, Ark casts a simple fire spell that incinerates a tree, contemplating how he's able to use magic despite his class being incapable of doing so. Ark then surmises that he's able to utilize all of the previous skills from the upgrade path of his main skill Holy Knight, which led him to believe he's super strong. Growing hungry and sadly without food or funding, Ark casts a gate spell to teleport him somewhere, but is instead teleported off a cliff he stood close by. Reflecting on how the gate spell works, Ark instead uses another spell called Dimension Move. Landing safely by a river stream, Ark takes off his helmet to drink from it, but realizes that his head is that of a skeleton. Remembering that he chose the skeleton avatar back in his old world, Ark fathoms that if he entered a town without wearing his helmet, he'd be treated as a monster. Hence, he plans to try and avoid drawing any attention to himself and teleports to a nearby town. The name of the town is Luvirt, and after exploring the place a bit, Ark encounters a woman arguing with an investigator over his failure to obtain the information she hired him for. As it turns out, the woman was an elf, which amazes Ark, but he soon loses sight of her. He, however, then finds the town's mercenary guild and upon entering it, tries to acquire a license. Initially, the male receptionist claims that it'd be pointless for him to get one as he appears to be well employed already due to the armor he's wearing. So, Ark gives an excuse and the receptionist believes it, but informs him that before he can get one he'll have to pass a trial. The trial entails that Ark must bring back proof of subjugation of one of three things: a beast, monster, or bandit. Wasting no time, Ark leaves the guild as the receptionist and a fellow guild member draw a conclusion to Ark's backstory of why he decided to join the guild. Afterward, Ark slays a couple of boars and then an orc. Carrying the proof of subjugation, Ark spots a group of bandits surrounding a carriage who slays the guards and surround a noble lady and her maid. Reflecting on how different the situation is from killing beasts or monsters, the bandits take advantage of the noble lady and her maid. We see again Ark slaying the bandits and this time finishing off the remaining bandits with his wyvern slash move. Once the bandits were dealt with, Ark checks upon the two ladies and learns of their names, and when Rita asks if Ark belongs to a noble, briskly, Ark comes up with a makeshift story of how he's a cursed knight that's on a journey to find a remedy for his condition, but withholds it from the two for now. As Rita and Lauren step into the forest to take care of themselves, Ark cremates the bandits' bodies with his fire spell and notes his lack of guilt for killing them all. Before the ladies return, Ark loots the bandits' belongings and uses their horses to carry it all. Heading back to the town, Ark rides parallel to Lauren's carriage driven by Rita, who thanks Ark for what he did, while Lauren makes Ark feel uncomfortable as he puts it, staring holes into him. Rita then asks for Ark's name and he introduces himself as a humble traveler by the name of Ark. Back at the guild, Ark turns in his subjugated prey and receives a runestone from the orc that he slew and is advised by the receptionist to remove them whenever you kill a monster. After a brief explanation of what runes can be processed into, Ark is given his license and he immediately checks into an inn and has the food served there delivered to his room. Indulging and imbibing in the food and drinks that he was served, Ark looks forward to completing some quests the following day. A single mother named Siona works hard for her two children, Marka and Helena. She heads to the field every morning as the sun rises. Wanting to help their mother, Marka writes a job request asking for help. Eventually, Ark accepts the job, which entails protecting someone as they collect herbs. He arrives at the job destination called Rada Village and the village gatekeeper directs him to Siona's home. Arriving at the location, both Marka and her sister Helena were eating breakfast when Ark knocks on the door and Marka answers it, immediately bewildered by the large presence of Ark, who informs her that he accepted their job posting from the mercenary guild. A brief flashback shows an interaction between the guild receptionist and Ark about the job, and the receptionist suggests Ark be gentle with the client. Back in the present, Ark is served tea and Marka politely asks if they can start immediately, to which Ark accepts and thus Marka prepares herself for the work ahead. En route to their destination, Ark mentions that the job details mentioned fanged boars have appeared around the village necessitating protection. Hence, Ark asks why Marka is trying to complete this mission so quickly and Marka confesses that her mother would be coming home soon and disapprove of what they're doing. She also asks that Ark keep this information from her mother and goes on to reveal that her father passed away the previous year and that her mother had been raising them by herself. Her mother took it upon herself to take up her father's job to collect herbs and Marka wants to make her mom happy. The confession impresses and moves Ark's heart and is resolved to help Marka with her task to collect herbs. In the fields where some herbs called kakura are located, Marka gives Ark a lesson about the plant, which impresses Ark with how knowledgeable she is. Marka then suggests they head to the nearby kabumi tree, but some shaking in the bushes alerts him, and upon investigating it finds a wounded green multi-tailed monster. It bites Ark's finger when he extends a hand, and so Ark then uses healing magic on it to allow it to heal from its wound. Elated, the monster gleefully scurries around Ark and decides to follow him. Marka suggests that Ark name the creature, and after a bit of a naming session, Ark decides the name of Ponta. Back in the village, a hunter is distraught by something he saw in the forest that wasn't the usual fang boar that would be normally encountered in the forest. As it so happens, Siona arrives back in the village and hears from the gatekeeper that Marka left for the forest earlier that morning with a knight. Returning to Ark's group, they find the kabumi tree in full bloom, and the moment Marka approaches the tree, a giant basilisk appears from behind it. Noticing Ponta's upset behavior toward the beast, Ark deduces that the one responsible for injuring her was the monster. Before the basilisk could stomp on Marka, Ark briskly pulls her out of the way and then avoids its poison fog breath attacks. Analyzing the basilisk's attacks, while defending against its paralyzing claws and whip-like tongue, Ark then uses his holy shield of 2 dates to defend against a petrification attack. After this, Ark uses his judgment attack that slices the monster in half, thereby defeating it. Happy that the monster was defeated, Marka notes that the villagers will celebrate the monster's death, but Ark requests that it be kept a secret, and Marka understands. Ark then notices a ring around the monster's right ankle that disappears moments after it was spotted. It's deduced by Ark that the fang boars that appeared close by the village were drawn there by the basilisk. As it so happens, one appears before them and Ark slays it and presents it as a gift to the village, but notes he'd take the boar's fangs and runed stone as payment. He also intends that the hide be tanned and given to Marka, and the meat would be divided among the villagers. Marka then reunites with her mother Siona, who embraces her daughter, and Ark formally apologizes to Siona for recklessly allowing her daughter to go into the forest. The village gatekeeper and hunter then approach Ark and ask him if he ran into the monster that was wreaking havoc in the forest, but he denies it, as does Marka. By dusk, Ark and Ponta get ready to leave, and Ark is given a circlet of flowers by Helena. Later that night within the forest, a large group of soldiers slay a giant basilisk of their own. The leader is given a status report of the total number of deceased and injured soldiers by his subordinate, and about how a single person managed to slay a giant basilisk by themselves. Amazed by this feat, the leader surmises that the one who slew it must be either a god or devil. Meanwhile, Ark enjoys himself in his room with Ponta and considers taking on a more challenging quest the next day. Arian's inner monologue notes how the elf and human treaty is nothing more than a farce at that point in time, and that she seeks more power. It was the encounter with a large man in silver armor that would change her destiny, as she spots Ark with Ponta on his shoulder exiting a cave and prepares to attack him. Before this encounter, Ark was chasing a group of bandits inside of the cave, and after they were dealt with, Ark finds their hoard of treasure. He also spots a couple of cages there, but pays no mind to them. Elsewhere, in Dinto, Marquis Triton hears from his consort Celsica about the failed assassination attempt on Lauren's life. As for the beasts that were set loose in Luvert, they were the giant basilisks, which were both individually slain. The news disheartens Triton, and Celsica asks why Prince Dakares was targeting the area in the first place. Triton, on the other hand, has no clue, but surmises it's from His Highness backers from the Eastern Empire. It's also noted that they cannot allow any information to leak that they're in allegiance with Dakares to come to light, or else that would complicate matters with Prince Sect. Henceforth, Triton orders that the product must be secured and sent to the market, and that Princess Uriana not become aware of this. Celsica assures that it will be done, and Triton then asks about his son Utilan, and Celsica details that he was escorting the product, which Triton scornfully disapproves of. Back to Ark. He's attacked by Arian and recognizes her as the elf from the city. Arian accuses Art of being a bandit, but stops attacking him after she sees Ponta and recognizes her as a spirit creature. This clears the suspicion of Ark being a bandit, and Arian discloses that she heard that bandits that were located there were hunting elves. Realizing that's what the cages he found in the cage were for, Ark informs Arian that no elves were found in there, and then learns from her that elves are sold for a high price on the slave market. Before Arian runs off, Ark tries to offer his help, but Arian flatly rejects the offer and runs off. Despite being rejected, Ark is adamant to help, as he considers it an event quest of some sort. Back at his room at the inn, Ark enjoys his dinner and talks about his time with Arian, who did not introduce herself to him. But still, he hopes to see her again and plans to seek her out the following day. Warping into a place that he had suspected was close to the elven forest, Ponta then senses some presence nearby. It turns out it was a young elven girl trying to escape from her captors, but is soon caught. The aforementioned Utilan was the leader of the bandit captors, who not only taunts the girl for trying to escape, but also stabs her in the leg as well. Ark watches it all as it unfolds, and before he could make a move, Arian appears and takes out a couple of bandits with a single swipe. One of the bandits recognizes Arian as a dark elf, a rare type of elf, and would fetch a great price, which Utilan claims that he doesn't care for her and the bandits are to do whatever they please with her. A large number of bandits then surround Arian, but she instantly defeats them, and one of the remaining bandits recognizes Arian as an elven warrior. Once Arian takes out nearly all of the remaining bandits, Arian is caught in a pinch when Udalan takes one of the elven girls hostages. Seeing an opportunity to help, Ark appears behind Udalan and uses his armor lariat attack against him, which KOs him. The remaining bandits are then dealt with by Arian. The elven captives were rescued, and Arian notices that the captives wore mana-eating collars. Unaware of what such a collar is or does, Arian explains that it suppresses their ability to use their spirit magic. Ark casts a curse on one of the elven girls and then heal the wounds on the girl. This act leaves Arian amazed at how he was able to accomplish such a feat with little incantation. Soon, Ark removes the remaining collars on the rest of the elven girls. Arian summons her spirit creature, a whispering fowl, to relay a message about the rescued elves. Eventually, a couple of cloaked elves arrive at the scene and pick up the formerly captive elven girls. With the elven girls out of the picture, Arian recounts the skills and abilities that Ark displayed and demands to know who he really is, but Ark assures that he is no one of any importance. Just as the whispering fowl returns and relays a message from someone claiming that the main perpetrator's HQ is located in Dinto, and that they're going to make a move on there soon. In light of this, Arian asks to hire Ark for his services. Arian requests to hire Ark, who considers that her comrades will act apprehensively towards him, but she's willing to trust that they'll accept him the same way she does. So, Ark accepts Arian's offer. Using the magic spellgate, Ark teleports the group to Little River, which surprises Arian as she notices Dinto in the distance. The reason why Ark teleported them to that spot by the river was that he didn't want to cause a commotion in the city. When they arrive in the city, they wait for Danka, who Ark is shocked by the severe look on his face. Once Arian gives a brief introduction of Ark to Danka, they decide to reconvene at a restaurant. There, Arian formally introduces Danka to Ark, and he notices that Danka has Maple in his name too, which leads him to believe that they're related. Arian then informs Ark of the nomenclature of elves. Ark then tries to ask Danka a question, but he's too preoccupied with his beef skewer and beer. After finishing those off, Danka coldly asks who Ark is, and Arian explains Ark's backstory and that he can use teleportation magic. Confirming that he can use teleportation magic, Ponta appears by his shoulder and Danka recognizes him. Impressed by this news, Danka then discloses the location of their target area within the theater district. It's decided that they'll wait until nightfall when the security is most lax. In light of that, Ark and Ponta leave for an hour to prepare themselves, and Arian says they'll be waiting there for him. With Ark gone, Danka notes that he's surprised that she asked for help from an outsider. In her confession, she admits that she was adequate in trying to rescue the captured elves and claims that her sister would have had no trouble in accomplishing it. Danka then says that one day, she should be able to stand in the same acclaim as her sister, but asks if they can really trust Ark, and she reaffirms it. Meanwhile, Ark is shown to have cashed in the bandit bounties and possessions. Now with some gold, Ark buys a meal for himself and enjoys it with Ponta. Elsewhere, the captive elves' location is revealed, and one of the elves proclaims that they'll be rescued and that the bandits will be punished. The bandits, however, pay no mind to the warning. That night, the group heads out to their destination, all while being tailed by an unknown person. Using Dimension Move, Ark teleports the group to the rooftop of their destination. After Arian struggles to get inside the building, Ark uses Dimension Move again to teleport Danka, Ponta, and himself into the building. Searching around the inside of the building, they find that some of the bandits were killed. From there, they all split up to investigate the building so they can cover more ground. Ark uses Dimension Move to cover the sound of his tracks as he moves around the building, and the moment he finds more dead bandits in a room, he's attacked by a ninja. Exuberant over this discovery, the ninja asks Ark how he knows that she's a ninja, but calms down after seeing Ponta. The ninja deduces that Ark is there for the enslaved elves and then gives him a roll of paper which she claims will be of use to him, the location of the elves. She also notes that she was unable to locate her own objective there and then gives Ponta a sprig of berries. As a show of remorse, the ninja informs Ark that there are 2 more elves being held captive in the Lord's palace. The papers which the ninja gave Ark turn out to be paper contracts for elven slaves, and Ark shows this to both Arian and Danka while also mentioning there are 2 more elves in the Lord's palace. When asked about where he found the papers, Ark claims that he found them on one of the bandits there. At that moment, 3 bandits enter the room Ark's group is in and are swiftly dealt with by Arian. Down in the basement area, the elven girls are freed by Ark's group, and the elves are thankful for being rescued by them. Gate is cast by Ark, and outside, he notices the magic-eating collars around the elves' necks and uses Uncurse to dispel them. This feat astonishes Dank. As the elves thank Ark, Danka tells Arian that it's not over yet and that he'll lead the elves home safely. He also leaves Ark and Arian to take care of rescuing the remaining 2 elves held captive in the Lord's palace. Ark then uses Dimension Move to reach the Lord's palace. Watching them from afar was the ninja accompanied by another ninja, and she comments that they'll meet again someday. This second part begins having 2 elven ladies by the names of Sina and Una restrained on his bed. Triton prepared to have his way with them, but first chastises his son, Udalan, for his recent failure. Elsewhere, Ark and Arian manage to successfully land on Triton's mansion and catch the attention of a couple of guards. Using his wyvern slash, Ark slices the bell there that allowed distraction, allowing them to infiltrate the place. At that moment, Celsica informs Triton about the intruders in the mansion, and when he claims that the invaders are monsters, the door behind him explodes. After the smoke starts to fade and settle, from the newly created hole in the wall stands Ark and Arian, who claim they'll rescue the restrained elves. Arian then incapacitates Triton, while Ark scares the daylights out of Udalan and in the process finds a hidden room. Ark was going to inform Arian of this find, but she and the other elves were far too busy punishing Triton, which irks both Ark and Ponta. Just then the guards of the mansion arrive and Arian uses a fire spell on her sword to attack the guards and asks that the elves meet with Danka. The two elves then leave and Arian goes to check up on Ark, who loots the gold from the hidden room. Caught in the middle of the act, Ark claims that he's prohibiting the Dinto family from rebuilding in the future and Arian buys it. Several bombs are detonated across the mansion, and because of this, Ark and Arian teleport to a safe location. Although the pay that Arian had in store for him was inadequate, she offers Ark to accompany her to the Elven lands where more elves are being held captive. The proposal internally elates Ark. However, he questions whether someone like him will be well welcomed in the lands, and Arian admits that she'd have to talk with the elders. In response to that, Ark claims he can never take off his armor and Arian asks why, to which Ark asks if she'd turn her sword on him if she saw his face, and she promises that she wouldn't. Hence, Ark takes off his helmet and shows Arian his true visage and a brief explanation of his past, claiming that he's suffering from a curse that has his appearance transformed. Deducing that he's not of the undead and placing her trust in him for helping her out so far, Arian claims he'll be welcomed in the land of elves. Furthermore, the elder may be able to help him change back into his original form. To that, the two formally introduce themselves and shake on their newly formed relationship. In Olav, the capital of the Rodan Kingdom, King Karlon holds a meeting with his children, Princes Sect and Dakars, and Princess Uriarna about the recent events surrounding Triton. Sect mentions that Triton was illegally selling elves to the eastern country, which Dakars refutes, but Sect claims that Dakars is standing up for him. The comment upsets Dakars, who speaks defensively, but is stopped by King Karlon and speaks in favor of Dakars while claiming a full investigation must be had before any conclusion would be drawn. King Karlon then asks for Uriana's opinion on the matter, and she claims that she heard the rumors being spread about the elven slaves causing the imposed treaty to be broken. That would thereby cause raised tensions with their kingdom and other nations, hence they need to ascertain the truth immediately. She also mentions the backlash from the elves themselves, and Sect mentions that the other nations would hold them responsible. Therefore, King Karlon assigns Uriarna to visit Limbolt and negotiation any tensions that have arisen there and concludes the meeting. Alone in the room, Karlon thinks about how the situation has become a big mess. Ark and the party walk through a dense forest, and Ark decides to use Dimension Move to scout ahead and ends up falling down a small cliff that was by a small running stream. They decide to make camp there, and that night, Danka has a whisper bird deliver a message to Arian informing her the elves they rescued are in his care. Ark then asks how far is it until they reach their destination of Lalatoya, and Arian answers that they should reach there within 2 nights. Because Arian was still hungry, Ark leaves to hunt a boar, leaving Arian to spend time along with Ponta. Upon returning to the camp with a freshly caught boar, Ark catches Arian cuddling with Ponta. In light of this, Ark plans to have some cuddle time with Ponta, which embarrasses Arian immensely. Sometime later in Olav, Uriarna is served tea by her maid Ferna. As she goes to drink it, she mentions her suspicions that her brother Dakars is involved in the elf trade incident, and that Sex will go after him about it. Ferna then claims that either Sect Uriarna will get the throne, but Uriarna warns her not to speak so carelessly. To Uriarna's reasoning, what must be focused on is the matter of negotiations with the elves in Limbold, and nothing more. Ferna understands and claims that she'll get to see her sister Siriarna again, and Uriarna takes pleasure in knowing that. Meanwhile, Ark and Arian arrive at their destination of Lalatoya. Upon arriving at Lalatoya, Arian requests that she be let passage inside and be granted an audience with the elder. The gate to the village opens, and Arian asks that Ark wait there for her until she returns. Ark remains outside the gate until dusk, until finally he's allowed inside, and follows Arian to the elder's house, where he enjoys the scenery of the village. At the elder's home, Ark and Arian are met by the elder and his wife Dylan Tog Lalatoya and Glenys Ulnau Lalatoya, both of whom are Arian's parents. Dylan formally thanks Ark for all of his achievements towards the elven village, but he does rebuke Arian for attacking Triton's manor. Ark then chimes in on the conversation and, inside their home, explains the situation in full to Dylan. Understanding the problem at hand, Dylan says that he'll inform the other elders in Maple to alert them of the trafficking contract that was uncovered. After explaining the situation, Glenys arrives with dinner, but Ark is anxious to eat due to his condition. However, it's learned that Glenys and Dylan already know of Ark's condition, and he's allowed to eat the food without fear. The following morning, Ark wakes up and learns that Arian and Dylan have already left from Glenys. Glenys then gives Ark a tour of the village and knows a bit of the village history from her. Two young girls then approach Ark, who thank him for rescuing them from the slavers. Apologizing to Glenys for his distraction, she tells Ark that it's alright and requests to spar with him. Meanwhile, Arian and Dylan listen to the elders debate on how to proceed with the humans violating the 400-year treaty about enslaving elves. The result of the discussion is settled by Elder Brian Bond Evangeline Maple, who suggests they observe the Rodent Kingdom's reaction to the attack on the Lord's Manor. Returning to Ark, he spars against Glenys, who quickly overwhelms him with her swordplay during their sparring match together. As Arian and Dylan walk out of the Elder's coven, Arian formally apologizes to her father about the meeting outcome. Still, Dylan assures her that the result could have been better, but also worse. However, Dylan laments not being able to meet Even while they were there and informs Arian that Even is getting married next year. The news perturbs Arian as her sister's nature is akin to a battle maniac. Even appears out of nowhere and tackles Hugs to the ground. Despite seeing his daughter in evident distress by her sister's antics, Dylan leaves the two, and they soon talk about Arian's recent accomplishment and Even's upcoming marriage. Back to Ark again. He finishes his spar training with Glenys and later enjoys a soothing bath with Ponta. Eventually, Arian arrives home and readies herself to take a bath, only to find Ark already in there, and acts apprehensively. Afterward, before their dinner, Dylan briefs Ark on the current situation decided by the elders. He also hires Ark to hunt down the names on the contract while also freeing any elves he encounters. Admitting that the pay he'd receive for the job would be inadequate, Dylan bargains with Ark and offers him information on how to break his curse to make up for his reward. Dylan then informs Ark of a magical spring near Lord Crown that can remove curses. However, it's also a place where the Dragon Lord makes its home, and to add to that danger are the spirit animals who also inhabit the area. Because of the risks it imposes on a human, an elf would have to act as a mediator to be granted access there. Ark accepts this reward, but internally notes how his curse was an RP thing. Arian then claims she'll join Ark in his quest, and Ark accepts the search. In bed, Ark ponders whether or not his skeletal avatar is a curse or not. However, if his condition was a curse, he'd be able to dispel it with one of his spells. However, spells such as those hurt the undead and could harm him. Ark casts Uncurse on himself to test this theory, and to his amazement, it works without inflicting any harm. Ark and group set out for Olav, the capital of the Rodent Kingdom, and Ark reflects on how his skeleton body is in fact due to a curse. Although he can cast an Uncurse spell on himself to cure his condition, the effects are sadly temporary. Soon the group makes it out of the forest they tracked through and reaches a small pond where giant dragonflies inhabit it. The giant dragonflies immediately attack Ark and chase him as he tries to flee from them. In a village pub, Ark admits to Arian that he's afraid of insects, and while they enjoy dinner, discuss their plans forward through the next forest. Their waitress admonishes them from cutting through the forest due to its infestation of monsters called haunted wolves. Understanding that Arian wants to go through the forest so they can rescue the elves faster, Ark and Punna both agree to follow her through the forest. The following day, at Olav, Uriarna accompanied by her attendee Ferna settle in their horse-driven carriage. It's planned to regroup with their guards midway in the nearby forest to keep up a fast pace and reach the Grand Duchy of Limbolt with all possible haste. Unbeknownst to them, they were being closely watched from the shadows by an elusive figure. Back to Ark's group, they close in on where the haunted wolves are said to be. Arian then talks about how the monster's tail fur is used to make veils, which are wonderful gifts for brides-to-be. She then says that her sister is soon to be wed, and Ark surmises that she'd like the tail fur to create a present for her sister's wedding. At that moment, they're attacked by haunted wolves, which most are illusions cast by the wolves. They both handle themselves against the haunted wolves, and soon Ark locates the leader of the pack. Confronting the pack leader, Ark sees that it has a similar ring attached to its leg that he once found on a giant basilisk. Ark manages to cut the ring off of the pack leader, which allows it to regain control of itself and call its pack members to regroup with it and leave. Soon, Arian regroups with Ark and learns from him about the rings he found on the haunted wolf and giant basilisk that attacked them in the past. After that explanation, they take a brief rest, allowing Arian to harvest a dead haunted wolf's tail fur. Meanwhile, Uriarna's carriage progresses through the forest, and Uriarna confesses her thoughts on the mission her father imposed on her. She is fully aware that her brother Dakars is the ringleader responsible for the elven slaves, and that her other brother sect would allow things to play out without getting involved. Just then the carriage starts to shake, and a couple of the guards outside shout that they're under attack. Returning to Ark's group, Arian prepares to skin the tail fur from the wolves, and Ponda hears a disturbance in the distance and heads for it. Ark follows him, and Arian stays behind to prepare the wolf's tail fur. At Uriarna's carriage, both Uriarna and Ferna are slain by one of 6 hooded assailants, and one of Uriarna's guards was an accomplice. Just then, Ponda followed by Ark arrive at the scene. As Ark examines Uriarna and Ferna, the assailants launch multiple fire beretta and rock shot at Ark, who is invulnerable to the attacks. Assessing whether or not he should cast a spell to revive both Ferna and Uriarna, Ark is shocked to see that the haunted wolves from before attacked the assailants. Ark joins the attack, and they manage to take out a few of them while the rest escape from the scene. Once that was all settled, the wolves take their leave, and Ark decides to cast regeneration on Uriarna, Ferna, and as many of her guards as he so can. While Arc does this, Uriana briefly regains consciousness and thinks Arc is an angel. Awakening from her unconscious state thanks to Ferna, Uriana learns from her that they were healed somehow and so were most of their guards. Considering their revival as an act of God, she proclaims this to the remaining guard troops of hers. Arc witnesses Uriana give the proclamation from afar and then regroups with Arian, who had finished her personal task, and they continue forward. Finally, at Olaf, they nearly get involved in a fight between a young lady and 3 angry men who are easily dealt with by the young lady who turns out to be the ninja girl. Chiom thanks Arian and Arc for freeing the enslaved people back in Dinto, and introduces herself as a member of the Jinshin clan's 6 ninjas. They then change their location to a room in an inn, and there, Arc introduces himself and Ponta while Arian introduces herself. Changing the subject, Chiom asks Arc why he addressed her as a ninja back in Dinto, and Arc claims that ninja exists where he comes from. Surprised by this, Chiom claims that Arc may be from the exact location where the great founder, who lived 600 years ago, was from. Internally, Arc thinks that 600 years ago, another person from his world came there and started his ninja village. Arian then asks why Chiom wanted to talk with Arc, and she requests that he help her save her comrades. In light of this, Arc mentions that he's already contracted to help Arian save a bunch of elves. As Arc contemplates the situation, Arian asks Chiom if she's been rescuing people since a young age, and she confirms it. Arian relates with Chiom on that fact and decides to help her on her quest to save the enslaved beast people. In the royal castle, Prince Dakars throws a fit about the haunted wolves stopped taking orders. Another man there named Centurion speculates that the rings on the wolves may have been broken somehow, and that Uriana is likely to be alive. This would pose a severe problem to Dakars' plans to stop the negotiations between the elves and her. Dakars then asks who the perpetrators were, and Centurion responds that they were likely elves and would have eventually arrived in Olaf. Following Centurion's advice, Dakars takes a carriage to a safe house of his. Meanwhile, Arc and the group walk through a forested area, and Chiom informs Arc that the founder of her village wasn't a beastman, but a human named Hanzo. She reveals that Hanzo was once a spy for the Revlon Empire who took it upon himself to take in underprivileged beastmen in his care and train some of them too, reaching their destination, the largest slave market in Olaf, Etsat Market. By dusk, Chiom goes over the plan and asks that both Arian and Arc act conspicuously, and then make a quick escape when they're done. Chiom admits that she doesn't believe that everyone involved in this will be able to escape. Arc then asks if Etsat is a decoy, and Chiom confirms it by mentioning the other 4 slave markets in Olev will be targeted. Chiom hopes the sacrifices will be minimal with their help, but Arc and Arian are resolved to help to the bitter end. Confident in his teleportation magic, Arc learns from Chiom that Hanzo could use space-time ninjutsu. Elated to hear this, Chiom goes off to notify her comrades, tells Arc and Arian that the assault on the market will take place that night, and advises them to prepare themselves. Arc and Arian then return to their room at the inn and enjoy dinner. And afterward, Arc dons a new mask, and they're soon met by Chiom and her companion Gomen. Hearing Gomen's name, Arc asks Chiom if that's her real name, which she answers it's not, but rather a title given to the most skilled in their clan. Once this is revealed, Gomen gets into a scuffle with Arc, but they immediately bond after this. It's decided that Arian and Chiom will attack the front, while Arc and Gomen will attack the rear. Wasting no time, Arc and Gomen approach the back gate, and Gomen casts Stone Smasher on himself to help Arc break through the front door. Inside the place, Arc takes out several guards, and Gomen casts Arm Bracer, which transforms his body into hardened steel that breaks the weapons of those who attacked him. Arc then casts Rock Shot, which takes out more of the enemy soldiers that are there and gives off a menacing laugh, which terrifies them. Taking advantage of the situation, Gomen casts Rock Spear Strike and Arc adds to it with his Rock Fang. However, this caused a cumulative effect around the area, causing their spells to affect the entire area. On the opposite side of the fort, Chiom and Arian manage to get past the front gate and head toward the market. During the night of the attack on the Etsat market, Dakars and Cetrian's safe haven learns from the said person that the market is under attack, as well as 4 other slave markets as well. Dakars demands that reinforcements be sent to the places under attack and notes his frustration about his situation. At the Etsat market, Chiom, Arian, and Ponta infiltrate the place, and a couple of guards soon accost them. The guards are quickly dealt with by Chiom's ninjutsu, Liquid Wolf Fang. A quartet of guards is alerted, and Arian uses her fire magic to deal with them. They then reach the cells where the slaves are held, and Chiom announces herself as part of the Jinshin clan who's there to rescue them all. As Chiom opens some of the cells, more guards arrive and are swiftly dealt with by Arian. Outside in the market compound, Arc and Gomen arise from the rubble and are soon joined by Chiom's group, who informs them of the Beast People's whereabouts. Gomen decides to stay alone and defend the area if reinforcements arrive, leaving Arc and the others to return to the market and free more of the slave held captive. Once they do, Chiom finds a pile of dead bodies, and a slave informs them that slaves who were sick or injured were disposed of. Arc pulls Chiom together, and they all regroup with the slave in the hall, who are then teleported out by Arc's magic in large groups. Once that was settled, Arc returned to the market compound to assist the injured and belaboured Gomen. With Arc using his Rock Fang and Gomen using his Rock Spear Strike, they manage to decimate the reinforcements without a hassle. After this, the two reconvene with Arian and Chiom and bring along the deceased slaves' bodies. Once the bodies are properly and respectively laid out on the ground, Arian cremates them, and as Chiom watches this, she vows to become stronger. Meanwhile, Dakars is assassinated by Cetrian, who is in cahoots with Prince Sect, who learns from Cetrian about the freed slaves and Uriarna's supposed demise. Pleased by the news, Sect asks Cetrian to spread the news of Uriarna's death and relishes that he now is the sole heir to the throne. Returning to Arc's group, both Arc and Gomen have another manly bonding moment with each other, and Chiom restates her vow to Arian that she hopes to become stronger. Time passes and Arc's group returns to Olaf. They ride on a boat steered by Gomen and learn from Chiom that Gomen and her will head to a hidden village in the Calcut Mountains. She then claims that she'll give them the important information she had promised them. In the Grand Duchy of Limbold, Uriarna reaches her sister Siriarna's castle and she learns from her sister about her supposed demise. Inside the castle, Siriarna informs Uriarna and her attendee Ferna how news of Dakars killed her and was sequentially slain by Cetrian. Evidence of her death was inferred solely from the fact that the necklace that she always wore from their mother was found. Ferna then notes that the same necklace went missing. After contemplating the situation over, Uriarna tells her sister not to inform her father about her survival and instead hopes to continue her duty by speaking to the elves. Back to Arc's group. Arian relays a message through a whisper bird so Danka can be brought up to date with the current events. A flashback of the information given by Chiom that the location of the remaining elven slaves are at the Holy Revlon Empire. As they head to the east toward the Empire, Arc wonders why Arian's attitude changed so much, but wonders more about what new adventures lie ahead of them in the said empire. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital of the Holy Revlon Empire, Emperor Domitianus learns of the death of Dakars from his chancellor Velmoaz. Although pleased by the news that Uriarna is dead, Velmoaz informs Domitianus that the rings they provided to Dakars were broken and that a third person is involved in killing the princess. Domitianus speculates that Sect was the likely one to do it and asks about Fumba's progress in bringing Olaf to ruin. Velmoaz happily announces that his progress is coming along smoothly. Elsewhere, a worm-like monster with a ring attached to it kills a flying creature as Fumba himself observes from a safe location. 10. In a barren wasteland, a flock of sand wyverns flies in the sky and Arc becomes super excited by their presence. On the other hand, Arian notes that it's because of them that the whisper bird is too afraid to fly and deliver a message to Danka. Hence, Arc casts the AoE spell Lightning Damper to disperse the wyverns from the area. However, it works too well as it affects Arian, the Whisper Bird, and Ponta too. As Arc checks up on the group and frantically tries to deduce what went wrong, unbeknownst to him, someone was watching and taking notes on him. By dusk, the group reaches a town, and Arc formally apologizes for his actions after he tried to disperse the wyverns. From there, Arian discloses the plan on how they'll reach the Revlon Empire, and Arc mentions Arian's attitude since Chiom informed them about the Empire. To her admission, Arian claims that unlike the Rodan Kingdom Elven, slavery is allowed and her being an elf is notably disconcerting. They're then approached by the person spying on them before he introduced himself as Karsi Held, an elven monster researcher. Before Karsi could fully introduce himself, Arian puts a pot over his head and warns him that being an elf in a human settlement is dangerous. However, contrary to that notion, Karsi was a regular in the bar and was greeted warmly by its patrons. With a mug of beer, Karsi explains to them that he's lived in the town for 10 years and deduces that Arian happens to be a dark elf. He also mentions that he hopes humans and elves can one day coexist. Although Arian notes that Karsi's carefree attitude toward living with humans is appalling. However, Karsi argues that Arian is a hypocrite, noting she's traveling with a human in full-plated armor accompanied by a spirit animal. To that point, Arian claims that Arc is a special case, and he then asks Karsi what his business is with them. Karsi then requests that they help him with his research on monsters, and Arian flatly refuses, but Karsi offers them a map of the Revlon Empire as a reward for their services. Upon hearing this, Arian calls out Karsi for eavesdropping on their conversation. But Arc believes the map is a valuable item for their journey. The deal is sweetened when Karsi offers a bestiary as well, which Arc convinces Arian to agree to the request. After that is settled, Darcy agrees to the job, and Karsi informs the two to meet him at the town entrance the next day. Afterward, Arc pays for the room and board at the inn, and the bar innkeeper gives them a whole barrel of alcohol for their troubles. Inside their room, Arc and Arian enjoy the alcohol while talking about Karsi's dream of elves and humans coexisting. Amid this, Arian gets drunk and apprehensive toward Arc. The morning after, Arian wakes up with a hangover and mistakes Arc for a skeleton in her room. Later, they meet with Karsi, who introduces them to his companion and informs them that the whole town heard them last night. Hearing this makes Arian want to kill Karsi, but Arc stops her. Arian is shown to be rather ill thanks to the combination of her hangover, motion sickness, and not to mention the awful smell coming from their cart. Carsey explains that the awful smell was goblin corpses, and they'll be used as bait for catching a sandworm. The human companion of Carsey then gives Ark a bottle of tea for Arian's hangover, but she's hesitant to take it. However, Carsey assures her that his friend is trustworthy. Arian then drinks it and compliments its delicious taste, making Carsey's companion smile. Ark then asks for information on the sandworm. They're hunting, and Carsey elaborates on it. Arian then notices that the cart behind them is gone, and then the sandworm in question appears and is considerably bigger than expected. Spotting Carsey's companion by the broken cart, Arian tries to rescue him, but is ambushed by the sandworm, so she tries to exploit its weakness to fire with a fire spell. However, her attack against it was futile, and the sandworm tries to attack her, but Ark manages to save her in the nick of time, allowing her and Carsey's companion to retreat to a safe location. Taking advantage of the situation, Ark pulls the sandworm out from the ground and, using his immense strength, slams it to the ground. Once the sandworm was knocked out, the attached ring disappeared. Later that day, the sandworm is tied up and brought back to the town. There, Carsey gives the two their reward, but Arian asks Carsey why he lives amongst humans before they journey forth. A tad surprised by the question, Carsey answers that he figures he loves them. Carsey explains that his experience in the village he was raised in wasn't pleasant. Although Carsey's impression was near the same when he moved to his current residence, he's grown to love humans and foresees a time when humans and elves can coexist. Despite Carsey's dream, Arian doesn't believe it's possible. Carsey then asks if she's ever heard of Lambert Town, which is a port in Roden governed by a human named Petros du Lambert and his wife Teresa. Hearing this astonishes Arian, who thinks Carsey is lying and that the marriage was under coercion if it's true. However, Carsey assures Arian that it wasn't. Petros who saved Teresa from slavery, and after they developed feeling for each other, they got married. Since then, they hope to improve the relationships between elves and humans. Ark and Arian then continue their journey and discuss the possibility of coexisting between humans and elves. Meanwhile, an unnamed man from Revlon reports to Fumba as he fondles a couple of women by his side about the recent number of missing people. Fumba then shows the man the monster he has in store for the next attack and feeds one of his women to it, making the Revlon man sick to his stomach. 11. Arriving at the border town of Kasek, Ark figures they've finally arrived in the Revlon Empire, the place where the captured elves were being imprisoned in. Because of the tight security in the vicinity, they decide to ask around town while trying not to draw attention themselves. By dusk, Ark reviews what he's learned, that noises are coming from the castle and that people from the town have mysteriously disappeared over time. However, there's still no word about elves being held captive there. Before Ark and Ponta regroup with Arian, they hear a woman screaming and find a lady in an alleyway being confronted by a trio of men. Ark arrives at the scene and deals with the brutes. Soon, Arian arrives and after seeing Ark with the lady at his bosom, suggests she leaves, and terrified of Arian's malignant voice, the lady scurries off. That night in his fortress, Fumba learns from the three men who tried to capture the lady in the alleyway of their failure, so he feeds them to his white tiger monster. Outside of the fortress, Ark and the group proceed toward the fortress while Ark notes Arian's prickly nature. Once inside the fortress, Arian locates a hidden stairway, and as they walk down it, the pungent smell of beasts is noted. At the bottom of the stairs, the two guards guarding the solid iron gate are swiftly dealt with. However, Arian has trouble trying open it. Ark then tries and figures out that it slides open, which upsets Arian that a door functions like that. Behind the gates were rows of jail cells reeking an intense stench, and Arian finds bits of animal fur littered across the ground. Ponta then finds another iron gate that Ark opens, and behind it, the group finds a massive underground space with pillars all around the area. Fumba then arrives and notes that he came to investigate what was alerting his monsters. He then spots Arian and, finding her pretty, orders her to be his and deal with Ark. Seemingly possessed, Arian attacks Ark and reveals that she's a dark elf, which gets Fumba elated and riled up. He then demands that Arian deal with Ark faster, so Ark tries to use Uncurse on her, but it doesn't work. Arian has a dream where she's met by her sister Even underneath a large tree, who says it's time for them to train. Even's reason is that Arian is weak, and weakness is evil, and to combat this, she has to become strong, so she can protect the elves being captured by humans. Even then demands that Arian draw her sword and show just how strong she is. Back in reality, Ark casts Uncurse multiple times, which never works. Ark accesses the situation about Arian's condition and spots something in Arian's hood and has Ponta deal with it. Ponta finds an imp inside of her hood, and once revealed, Ark casts Fireball to eliminate it. As a reward for Ark figuring out his trick for possessing Arian, Fumba introduces himself by his full name and job title, Monster Sorcerer. He goes on to explain the extent of his skill in his profession, which concerns Ark, and then spots the rings attached to his belt match the ones he's encountered before in his travels. Figuring that Ark doesn't believe him, Fumba summons his white tiger monster to deal with him. Ark places Arian at a safe distance and asks Fumba about the elves who arrived there 4 months ago. Fumba then reveals that while most of them were sent to the Empire for their magical experiments, the remaining ones were used for his amusement. Hearing that, Ark slices off the monster's head with a single swipe and admits that he's encountered a fair amount of villainy since he's arrived in that land. However, to Ark's confession, Fumba's actions have fervently stroked the flames of his rage to a fever pitch. Unfazed by this, Fumba summons a horde of monsters, but Ark briskly deals with them all with his sword and skills like shield bash. Still unfazed by this outcome, Fumba points out that Arian is in a pinch, and Ark then sees that an orc was about to crush her with its club. However, the orc is entrapped in a body of water called Liquid Prison created by Chiom. Although Fumba tries to summon more monsters, he's told by Chiom that her comrades have eliminated them all. Surprised by Chiom's arrival, Chiom reveals that she told Arian that she and her comrades would arrive later. Ark realizes that Chiom was Arian's intel and did not learn any of this from Arian due to her prickly attitude. Just then the ground starts to tremor and Fumba claims that his masterpiece is hungry and they'll settle the score outside and flees the scene. Teleporting outside with Arian in his arms and both Ponta and Chiom on his shoulders, Ark recognizes the monster that escapes from the fortress as a Hydra. 12. Ark notices the rings on the Hydra that emerge from the fortress, and Chiom suggests a tactical retreat. However, before they can, the Hydra fires off a fireball straight at them. Fumaba watches this through the Hydra and relishes his victory over Ark's group. A flashback shows Fumba being rejected by his clan for being weak as he sought superficial power. He would later gain an audience with Emperor Domitianus and Lord Chancellor Valmoas and would be granted some authority in his land in exchange for his loyalty. Back in the present, Fumba sends the Hydra to Kasek to feed upon its inhabitants. Meanwhile, Ark and Chiom are shown to be both alive as Ark's shield magic protected them. Arian was also alive and was experiencing a calm rage, revealing that although she was in a trance, she could hear everything that Fumba said about what happened to the captured elves. Despite Arian wanting to go after Fumba, Ark suggested that he hunt the Hydra heading for Kasek. Figuring Ark could do it alone, Chiom and Arian go by themselves to hunt Fumba. In the Holy East Revlon Empire, Valmoas gives Emperor Domitianus an update concerning the Destroyer of Nations, and the rings of submission created from the analysis of Fumba's sorcery are nearly complete. The Hydra was closing in on Kasek, and the city guards raised an alarm as the head guard ordered preparations for an evacuation. Catching up to the Hydra, Ark uses his Wyvern Slash to catch its attention and follows up with a Shield Bash and Armor Lariat. An astonished Fumba witnesses this as it plays out, and then Ark dodges its Flame Breath with a Dimension move, but one of the heads bites down on him. Despite the other heads about to fire off fireballs at the entrapped Ark, he defends himself with his magic, and in the process, the head that entrapped him is destroyed. Using his Judgment skill, Ark destroys 3 of the Hydra heads, only for them to regenerate. Teleporting to a safe distance, Ark prepares to use a magic spell he's never used before and summons Ifrit to face off against the Hydra. Elsewhere, Ponta leads Arian and Chiom to Fumba's location, and he was amused by Arian's presence, figuring she was there to become his. After a brief back and forth talk between Fumba and her, Fumba tries to possess Arian again with some imp, but she kills them before he can. Chiom also scars his back, revealing he had a special spellcrest seal on his back that helped him control his monsters. Fumba warns them that the Hydra is now out of his control and will kill everyone in the city. Arian then assures Chiom that everything will be alright because Ark is down there to fight against the Hydra and then proceeds to incinerate Fumba with her flame sword. Back to Ark's side, through the combined efforts of Ark and his summon, Ifrit, they destroy the Hydra. Once Ark regroups with Arian, Chiom, and Ponta, a whisper bird sent by Danka arrives and conveys that Princess Uriarna has met with one of the great elven elders, Fangas. The meeting between them was to settle the matters between their respective kingdoms. Princes Sect and Dakars are mentioned as conspirators with the Revlon Empire as well. Princess Uriarna promises that if the Revlon Empire invaded the elven lands, the Olav Kingdom would help defend them. Fangas agrees to these terms and shakes Uriarna's hand on it. Returning to Ark's group, they walk down a dirt path. Ark and the group talk about the coexistence between humans and elves. In the kingdom of Olav, Cetrian reports to Prince Sex that Princess Uriarna survived, and her negotiations with the elves were a success, considering the possibility of a double agent. Prince Sex brushes this off and claims an alternate path to achieve their goal will be taken. In her room, Uriarna believes that she died once before but was brought back to life to fulfill her angel's wishes. News of the deaths of the Hydra and Fumba reach Domitianus, who considers it no loss whatsoever and is curious to know who slew the Hydra. Meanwhile, Ark unintentionally reveals his face to Chiom and is then filled in on Ark's condition. It's decided that after they reach Lalatoya, Arian will guide Ark to Lord Crown. Excited about that trip, Ark also asks to see Chiom's hometown, and she sheepishly agrees. So that's the end of the Skeleton Knight anime. Thank you and sayonara.